Hey guys, so today we're going to be making another theory video on Piggy Hidden Reality, but we're going to try to figure out the whole story behind it. So here, I kind of wanted to do a repost of this because the other one wasn't that good and I wasn't really concentrating that much. So here, we're going to break down every single episode. So starting with episode 1. Episode 1 starts off with Mason looking for a kid named Georgie. And then he hears sound, but he doesn't get attacked this time. So maybe, who knows? Mason could not be immune to the infection, but Pony is. We have no clue because we've never seen him ever get attacked actually. And getting attacked by an infected from their weapon doesn't count at all because they're hitting it with their weapon. Now, and they're not scratching you or biting you or anything. Mason never drank the potion. So, as it starts off, he goes inside the house and the door's locked up behind him. And Penny was not there at all. I don't know if she was meant to be there or not. This was made a long time ago, so I don't know. The door just shuts on itself as soon as he walks in. No one has to be seen boarding up the door, putting the lock, deactivating the wrench thing, putting a code. Mason tells Georgie to come out, but he's nowhere to be seen. Then he finds this window. He jumps out into the backyard and sees Penny. She pulls out her bat, and then Mason ends up fighting him. But Mason still never got attacked. So that means he goes over the fence and goes back to the front of the house and goes in the car. Then he reaches the station, which means that Polly and Doggy are there. Now Doggy has a different outfit, which is probably his police uniform until it changed to his forest uniform in episode 3. And then, so in episode 2, Polly was greeting Mason, and then Mason said that he has to get more info about Georgie because he didn't find him. And then he looks at the cameras and see that Georgie killed his father for his own good, and then runs off. Now, where does he run off? In episode 3, he runs off to the mall. I think, yeah, he runs off to the mall. I don't know if we really saw him in episode 3. Kind of forgot. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, the whole thing was about the gallery. So yeah, I bet Georgie runs off to the mall. And then, this starts off with Mason still laying in the car unconscious, and Doggy getting out, and sees that father has woken up with a knife. Now, it could be just a different model. The knife is probably not that important. And then Doggy starts to fight father. But he never got attacked either. So he just slipped past him and went in the gallery. Then he says, what was the point of coming here? And then he realizes that he has to get Mason. But while they were driving to the gallery, Mason was greeted by Tio. Now here, Tio actually wanted him to accept his offer so that Polly won't perish, because later in episode 2 his arm got ripped off and all. But if he means by perish, then that means he's never gonna be seen again. He probably disappeared in the thin air, and he's probably gonna be an illusion in episode 12 soon. Probably all Mason's friends who have died, like Polly, are gonna be in chapter 12 at the big fight with Mr. P. And then later on in episode 3, he wakes up, and then Doggy tells him to get inside. And then they get out of the gallery and they go to the forest. But father's still awake, so they run to the forest, and while father's chasing them, and then Doggy had to beat up father, then he did a backflip, and then for some reason his pupil falls out. So we probably won't be seeing father again. But then Mason touches it. Something probably affected Mason when he touched it, but nothing really happened to him. Something probably changed about him. Who knows? He might have the Piggy residence for all we know, but I don't think he's really infected. As the episode goes on, Sheepy conveniently dies as soon as Mason touches the pupil. Maybe it had to do something with Sheepy instead, because she conveniently passed out as soon as Mason touched father's pupil. Then they went to bed, but Willow, Pony, and Foxy were there, or Felix were there, and they were gonna go and infect Doggy and Mason. But just as they were about to do that, Mason gets up and hits Willow and kicks Willow. Then she falls on the ground. Pony backs up and says, "I'll help you kill Willow and Felix." But then Willow shoots him, making him unconscious. And Mason fights off the TSP members. But Felix and Willow had to put Pony's body into a dumpster next to the potion liquid. But before this happened, Mason was greeted by Teal once again. Teal was actually getting mad this time. And this is the only time. This is the second time that Mason has met him. But then Mr. Stitchy, for some reason, saves Mason. But then when Pony gets teleported, Mr. Stitchy is like, "Tio." It's probably because before Mr. Stitchy got his ability, he was probably his own self in his own body. But here, as soon as they fight, Mr. Stitchy ripped off Teal's arm and he faded away, never to be seen again. But it's weird, because in a tweet, Mason said before, Teal, Mr. Stitchy, and Pony are immune to the infection, which is weird. So either Mason is not immune, but Pony is, and it's kind of weird because Mr. Stitchy and Teal are kind of like infected, but they're not because they can talk. So Teal might be seen again, but we don't know. Teal, for some reason, for all we know, can actually start being nice to us, and be Mr. Stitchy. But as soon as Teal faded away, Mr. Stitchy suddenly had Teal's hat, and he had so many white eyes and insolence eyes around them, which is basically the Lost Book model of Mr. Stitchy. But then he wakes up to reality, and then Doggy says, "All right, it's your turn to start watching." And then Mason from his "What?" is probably annoyed, and then he says Morse code. Now Anthony actually solved this Morse code before, and it said "help me." So yeah, that's the Morse code, "help me." So something is definitely wrong with Mason. If Mason is saying that, something might bad happen to him in the future, maybe in season 2 or in season 1. So, and then later on, after the fight, they get outside the forest and they go to the school. Now, when they get to the school, Mr. P says that you have to go upstairs where you place a book in. And then it gets to the part where Georgie ends up arriving to the mall, but Robbie's there, so he ends up running. Then Doggy passes by some soccer awards and goes in the room where Teacher is. After he realizes that Teacher's in the same room as him, they start fighting. Now, weirdly enough, somehow Doggy got infected, even though he never got scratched at all. Maybe he did get scratched off camera, but he got backed up to a wall, and Teacher put the ruler by his neck, making him pass out. And and then Mason hears him screaming, and then he comes in, destroys teacher, and then ends up brutally murdering teacher, as you can see up on screen, and then they end up saving Bunny, but Mason was in a hurry, so it's understandable because Doggy is passed out, and before he can get infected, they have to cure him as fast as possible. So they get to the sewers, and then he ends up changing it to stop motion, which actually doesn't mean anything. He was just tired of animating. And then they end up going to the hospital. Doggy still hasn't waken up, but usually player actually wakes up at the start, or Mason, the player was supposed to wake up at the start usually in hospital, but I guess for this, Doggy was really paralyzed from what happened at the school. So, later on, alright, and then Georgie gets in the room where he's usually found at the mall, hiding, and he said that he's safe since he boarded up that door. Then, it cuts to Willow and Felix, not believing that they got spared by Mason. Later on, maybe in the series, Doggy could be mad about that for sparing them. And then it goes to a part where Pony wakes up in a dumpster, and the liquid potion is right by the dumpster. So possibly, as Felix and Willow were dragging him there, the potion dropped out of Pony's hand and spilled on the ground, and then they threw him in the dumpster and left. And then when he gets out, he ends up falling face first on the liquid, and then wakes up to Mr. Stitchy. And then here, this is where I get to the part. Now, Mr. Stitchy spared Mason, but now here, Mr. Stitchy is acting like Tio. So I'm thinking that Mr. Stitchy stole Tio's ability to make offers with people. So that's why Mason got spared. It's because he didn't get the ability yet, but now that he has it, he takes control of the world. But Tio can possibly come back soon. And then Mr. Stitchy was kind of dumb here, but he said that Zizzy, but he said that accept my offer and I'll tell you where Zizzy is. And then Pony's like, wait, tell me where she is first. And then he said she's in the nearby city. She's in the nearby city. And then Pony ends up leaving to one of the portals. Now here, Pony was never seen after that, but all these portals can lead to a different place. So he can wake up, so he can be brought back either at the forest or at the city, or maybe even at the carnival where Zizzy is looking for survivors. And then it gets to the part where Bunny confesses that she's infected. Mr. P was gonna give her a cure, but then Barry ends up breaks loose and pushes the hospital bed, preventing Mr. P from giving her the cure. And then Mason ends up waking up and fights Barry. But then Mr. P says, "Quick, meet me at my helicopter," and he completely forgot about the cure that he was meant to give Bunny. And then Barry ends up pushing Mason up to a wall. Doggy wakes up and fights Barry off. And then it gets to a part where Willow and Felix end up finding Tiggery. Tiggery is mad and Tiggery is upset and sad because his family left him. He has nowhere to go. Willow and Felix tell him to come with them. So, and then Doggy breaks the door down and sees that Mr. P has left. Then he calls him a traitor. Bunny looks at the note, saying that Mr. P had to leave for his own good. And then Mason ends up pointing out that that there's a metro station under the hospital that they can go to. Okay, then as Mason, Doggy, and Bunny are walking up to the train, she ends up passing out for some reason. I think it was due to the potion or her being attacked. The infection probably got up to her. Now here, this is the big question. Where did Doggy get the cure from? Was it found in the metro? Was it found in the hospital? Now here, what if Mr. P actually had the cure? So here, as they were running there, he found one of the rooms and he saw the blue potion. Now, this potion was actually the cure. So they ended up finding the cure. So they did end up finding the cure. But, so he took it just in case. So, Bunny still would have been saved even if Mr. P did give her the potion. That's what I would say. And so then, Doggy tries CPR, but you know, it was for a reason, to keep her alive, yeah. So, and then Bunny confesses that she got attacked at the school and locked herself in the room. And then, Doggy ends up giving her the cure, but Mason stops him because Doggy got attacked at the school as well. And so then, they drink the half of it. No, I bet this cure did save them both, but Mason did say that Bunny and Doggy were gonna die soon, but it had nothing to do with the infection. So then, Robbie ends up breaking down the door and takes off all the locks. So then, Georgie hides, but then conveniently, as he's about to die, he gets saved. Now, this could either be Tio or Mr. Stitchy that sent him back to his nightmare. Now here, what if he might have actually gotten teleported? What if his house was actually distorted? Because he probably would have been dead the next episode if it was just all in his head. Because he can't just be walking around in the mall and being in this nightmare. So he eventually probably teleported back in his same room that he was hiding in before, with everything being boarded up. Now here, either this. What if, I don't think Robbie actually broke the door down. I think this is all in his head, and that was just a nightmare that Georgie was having, since he did say that he was safe. Now, well, Georgie can't just board up the door again and put those hammer boards again. So that means that whole thing was just a nightmare, because he probably would have been dead the next episode if he woke up from his nightmare. And then Willow and Felix find the TSP in the refinery. And then Pandy asks,
"Where's Pony?"
They still remember Pony. Willow doesn't want to tell them because Pandy might be mad at Willow if he got infected and left them behind back at the forest. So Felix ends up making it an excuse.
Well, the officer fought back and infected Pony, and she's just paralyzed from it, you know? Oh, that's totally understandable.
Because he's immune to the infection and he'll appear back soon. Then over here, Mason, well, this kind of doesn't really have anything to do with the story, since Mason told me that there's no script for this, but I made the fight scene for Piggy and Mason. Now, here, the reason why I made him say, "Oh, great, a zombie, weird," it's because, one, he's already infected, and two, he's also a zombie, so it's like a zombie. That's why he said weird. And then they ended up fighting. Zombie pushes him down the stairs and then puts the key in his eye. And then, then later on, Doggy gets the last item to escape, the wrench. As he activates the thing, Doggy says, "Let's get out of here," and then Mason says, "Yeah." And then that's basically it for the whole thing. Now here, episode 8, Mason put out a leak saying, who put this infected here? Now, he also did say that he was gonna do a scene where he reads the note at the bottom saying that, do not enter Monster Inside by TSP. But he forgot to do it. He isn't lazy. He wasn't lazy. And then, what I'm thinking is, the start of episode 8 will be Buddy, Doggy, and Mason arriving to the carnival. They've been greeted by Clowny. Mason or Doggy might end up fighting Clowny, or maybe even Bunny. She might shoot Clowny, making him unconscious, and then they start unlocking things normally, and then it gets to the part where they meet Foxy. So Mason quickly beats up Foxy, gets to the exit, and then they break the door down and see Pony and Zizzy. But there's probably going to be some other scenes too, like Georgie. He's going to be escaping his nightmare, and then when he wakes up, he's going to be realizing that he's in the same room, but nothing happened. Willow and Felix are probably going to be discussing about the Pony thing. But then maybe there'll be a scene where Pony is teleported at their carnival or the city. They end up meeting Zizzy, and Zizzy says, "Pony, is that you?" And then Pony says, "It's you, Zizzy." And then Zizzy's like, "Well, I was about to go find more survivors. Do you want to come along?" Pony says, "Sure." And then when they get there, when they break the door down, Mason is greeted by Pony and Zizzy. Mason recognizes Pony, and so does Pony too. They just ignore it, and then they head to the city, but Foxy is there, so Pony ends up taking him out. And yeah, that's probably going to be episode 8. Now, episode 9 is where things get crazy, because I really know about this, but I'm going to start making more predictions now. Here, so in episode 9, they end up arriving to the city. Mason says, "Guys, let's go, Mason, Bunny, and Doggy, let's go check up on the roof." And then Zizzy says, "Me and Pony are gonna go unlock all the things down here." And then when they get up there, they're greeted by Ellie. Now Ellie ends up fighting Bunny, and then Ellie probably grabs Bunny and throws her on like one of those things on top. They're like a diamond plate metal square thing. I don't know what you call it. And then Doggy ends up helping her too. But here, I'm actually thinking this now. Ellie could have pushed Doggy. Ellie could have pushed Doggy, and then Bunny punches Ellie, but then Ellie pushes Bunny off, and then she kicks Doggy off. So that means both of them might have fell. Probably one could have lived, and then Bunny ends up. So maybe Doggy fell off. But here, Mason said that Bunny fell before Doggy. So here, either Bunny fell first, but then Doggy lived, or Doggy fell first, but then Bunny lived. And then Mason says that he might beat up Ellie with a plank or with his fists. So he put out a thing saying that the reason how Doggy died was because to save Bunny. Ellie didn't fall as well. Yeah. Now here, Mason, if you see this, you know you could just rip off her arm, right? I mean, it's not that hard. Mother did it to Polly, and Mr. Stitchy did it to Tio. So yeah, I don't think you would have trouble doing that. Alright. And then it cuts to a part. And then it might cut to a part where Pony and Zizzy are unlocking things. Pony gets the fire extinguisher, but then activates Grandmother. Now he's also said that Grandmother might also be on the roof. So here, Mason ends up turning around and sees Grandmother. So he fights the Grandmother. Pony unlocks the Grandma's poutine, gets the fire extinguisher, and then he goes down to tell Pony and Zizzy all about the news. Pony and Zizzy are shocked, and then it cuts to a part where it's daytime. Well, yeah, the setting is gonna be daytime for episode 9, I would believe. And then Felix ends up private chatting with Pandy about the Pony thing. Pandy is shocked, but Felix tells her to not tell anybody else. Pandy agrees, and then it cuts to a scene where Georgie hears noise outside. He goes to check it out and sees Pony, Zizzy, and Mason about to unlock the exit. So he quickly runs to a dumpster to watch what's going on. And then it cuts, and then as soon as Georgie was about to get to the mall, he accidentally attracts noise to them. Then Zizzy, and possibly Pony, could come as well. Mason, Pony, Zizzy could possibly get to the mall, or it could just be Mason and Zizzy go to the mall. And then here, now, Pony might have his black infected eye for the whole entire series. But then they get to the mall, and then they hear footsteps, cause Georgie ends up opening up the door, or taking the stuff off, and then puts it back on. And then puts the locker back on and puts the boards back on. Hammers them one last time and all. And then he goes inside and hides. And then later, Willow is like in her like office room, and she tells all the TSP members to get in here. Now, and then Willow says, we're gonna be planning something big coming soon. So Willow ends up explaining that we need to get Doggy, Bunny, Mason, because Willow doesn't know that Doggy is already dead, and Bunny is also dead, or it could just be Bunny or Doggy living, or both of them live, because he said maybe both of them would live. And then this is where she's talking about the star part. They're all gonna gang up and ambush them. So the TSP is not really seen until season 2, episode 1, I guess, because Willow's introduced in there as well. So then, there's a quick scene with Zizzy fighting Robbie, or Mason fighting Robbie, and when Zizzy comes up behind and kicks Robbie, then Mason punches him in the face. Robbie turns around and then Zizzy stabs Robbie's eye with her fencing foil. Then they end up unlocking all the things and see Georgie. And Georgie is all scared and all. They start talking about their safety and all, and like how Zizzy, or like how Mason knows him and all. And then they end up going to the safe place. Pony tells them about the helicopter signal, and then that will be it. And then they get to the outpost. There's like soldiers are coming out. Zizzy says, I'll go take care of the soldiers. So then, as she's fighting the soldiers, Pony and Mason unlock things, but then they run into Torture. Pony says, I can take care of this. He ends up fighting Torture, but as he was about to get hit by Torture, Mason jumps at him and hits him in the face, and then he's knocked out. Then they start unlocking more things and get to the exit. Then a bunch of soldiers start ambushing them because of Georgie. Pony and Zizzy said that they're gonna fight them off. Maybe Mason will add this, but the part where Pony says, Zizzy, if you don't make it out alive, I just want to let you know. And then Zizzy says, okay, Pony, I already know, that thing. And then they're gonna end up going to the plant. Now here, Mason also said that Doggy probably will be making it in episode 10 of Ball. And then they end up getting to plant. They're not gonna do the story memory because the story memory has already been done in like episode 9. So then they meet Mr. P. Episode 12, they meet Mr. P, and Mr. P is mad, and he tries shooting Mason. Then Mason dodges it, and Georgie is about to run to Mr. P, but Mason says, Georgie, stay back, I can do this. And then Mason says, you know what? Instead of fighting him, I should find something to make him snap out of it. So then, Badgie is awoken, and Badgie is running towards Georgie. Georgie hits Badgie, and hits him on the face, and he's knocked out. Georgie goes with Mason. Georgie goes into Mr. P's lab and gets the orange key card, and then Mason is in the green room unlocking stuff, and then Georgie is in the other room unlocking stuff. Badgie, as soon as Mason gets the pink vial, he is greeted by Badgie. Then Badgie tries hitting him, but he dodges it and punches him in the face and leaves. Then he puts the green vial in. Georgie also gets puts the purple vial in, or the pink vial, and then Georgie gets the green vial and puts it in Mr. P's lab too. Then they get the dynamite. Georgie sees Badgie right behind him, hits him, and then Mason throws the dynamite in the middle where Mr. P is. And then he might do a part 2 now, or he might do a part 1. Now here, that would be it for part 1 if there was a part 1, and then this is part 2. But this could also be, but there might not be a part 1, so this is part 2, but it's also not a part 2. It's just the whole thing. And then it gets to a part where everything is all distorted. Polly, Doggy, Bunny could appear, or Polly, Doggy could appear, or Polly and Bunny could appear. Or maybe it could just be Polly, because he said both of them might live. But then the illusions start to appear, and Mason's head is hurting as he's doing all this stuff. Georgie is still fighting Badgie, or actually Georgie's not to be seen because he's not in the final thing. Mason has to fight Badgie at the last part when he gets to Carnival and he has the mallet. He sticks the mallet inside Badgie's head, then takes it out, uses it, and then gets Mrs. P's picture and gives it to Mr. P. It says, Mr. P, take this, you're gonna need it. And then, I don't think there's a true ending, but Mr. P might tell his story of what happened, or hear this. So after when Mr. P is done explaining, Georgia says, come on, Vrcc87, we gotta go meet up. Or, no, come on, Mason, we have to go meet up with Zizzy and Pony. But then Mason ends up approaching Mr. P, and then he hears Badgie hit and punches him. Oh wait, well Badgie's already dead, so never mind. Oh, sorry, never mind that. Badgie's dead. So then Mr. P ends up explaining his story, and then after that, they go meet up with Pony and Zizzy. Then the credits will roll, and that'll be the end of the series. I better hope I'm right about this. This took me a while to make.